So next up is the Connecticut Deep, and they're going to be doing a big 5-part presentation. So I'll just begin with the first bio, which is Chris Falk. He's one of the newest environmental engineers. He's a number 2 in the Deep's Municipal Wastewater Group. Chris graduated from UConn in 2019 with a Bachelor in Science degree in Environmental Engineering. He did a short stint in environmental consulting with TRC in Windsor before joining the Deep at the beginning of 2020. He has served as the Municipal Wastewater Permit Program Lead for the last 2 years. So Chris, come on up, give him a warm welcome.
All right, hello everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to speak here today. As Ted just said, I've been with the department for 4 years now, and I've been our permit program lead for 2 of those years now. On top of being our permit program lead, though, I'm also involved in a lot of the other programmatic work our group does. So I'm involved with Sewage Right to Know, the Certification Advisory Committee. I'm involved with the nitrogen trading program, with PFAS. I've got a few Clean Water Fund projects, so I've sort of got my hands in everything within those 4 years. So I'll be giving our Npdes permit program update. Since I expected a lot of operators in the crowd today, I sort of wanted to focus the presentation on the permit application and new permit requirements that we've been putting into our new permits. So I'll start with an update with our permit backlog. Then I'll go into the application and frequently asked questions and common errors. Then I'll talk about the new permit requirements. I will touch on the 2023 phosphorus compliance. And then I'll talk about some plans we have for 2024. So just a quick recap of what we do. The Municipal Wastewater Group issues Npdes permits authorizing the treatment and discharge of domestic sewage into surface waters. Domestic sewage being sewage that consists of water and human excretions or other waterborne waste incidental to the occupancy of a residential or non-residential building. So there's another group at Deep that handles the industrial wastewaters. There's another group that handles groundwater discharges. We are just domestic sewage to surface waters. And within that sphere, we have 91 permitted facilities. That number is down 1 from last year. We recently had one of the private facilities decommissioned. So we're down to 7 privately owned facilities and 83 municipally owned facilities and 1 state-owned facility that we permit. So the permit renewal timeline. Obviously our goal for issuing permits is to get them out within 180 days. Obviously your permit applications are due 180 days before the permit expires. So the idea is that we'd get you the new permit before your current permit expires. Obviously, we're not meeting that goal right now. So what is the Npdes permit backlog? The Clean Water Act specifies that Npdes permits may not be issued for term longer than 5 years, and permittees wishing to continue discharging beyond the 5-year limit must submit a complete application for permit renewal before expiration of the permit or 180 days before expiration to avoid the late fees. If Deep receives a complete application but does not reissue the permit before it expires, that permit is administratively continued, and any received applications are considered backlogged if the permit has been administratively continued for 180 days. So basically, any permit that's been expired for 6 months and we've received the application, that permit is considered backlogged. So taking a look at all of the applications in the backlog, we currently have 44 applications being processed out of the 91 permitted facilities, so just under half. 32 of those are considered backlogged by EPA. We did finally issue 3 permits at the end of this year, which was sort of the culmination of a year of work. A lot of things were going on in the background. We redid all of our boilerplate template language, reorganized a lot of things, rewrote our internal procedures, trained new staff on those procedures, And finally, we're making some progress with issuance. And hopefully in 2024, permit issuances pick up significantly, and we're hoping to make some meaningful progress on this backlog this year, but also note that we're expecting to receive 15 more applications this coming year. So we've got our work cut out for us. Next, I'll go through the permit application. So the application underwent pretty major revisions at the end of 2020, sort of quietly during the pandemic. We added 13 pages to the main part of the application, part 6, and also a new attachment, attachment Y. Those of you who have submitted an application since the start of 2021 are probably familiar with these changes by now, but about half of our permittees haven't used this application yet, so I'll just go through some of the changes and what you should expect and what we're looking for in each of these sections. So one thing we added is a request for some collection system info. We're looking for the total population served by the collection system in each municipality, including the tributary communities. We're not looking for the number of customers you have. I know all of you probably have that number handy, but an estimate for the total population is fine. That's what we're looking for. You could use the Department of Economic Development factor of 2.6 people per household or 2.5 people per household from the census. Either one of those is fine. We're just looking for an estimate. And we're also looking for total mileage of sewer pipes within your collection system. This is just part of a data collection effort. We're also asking for some information on your flows in the application now. So obviously the design flow rate of the WPCF, the annual average and maximum daily flows for the past 3 years, as well as the estimated average daily volume of inflow and infiltration. This data helps DEEP staff determine whether the facility is approaching the design flow and may need to undergo an I&I study or a facility expansion soon. Remember, each of you in your permit have a requirement where if you exceed 90% of the design flow over a 180-day period, you're required to submit a report to us explaining how you plan to mitigate those increased flows. We ask for information on facility upgrades now, so a list of facility improvements planned during the next permit cycle, so the next 5 years, and also a description of any changes that have occurred since the issuance of the last permit. This info is really crucial to us because any improvements or process changes that you make or are planning to make could have permitting implications that we need to implement into the permit renewal. And remember, whether or not you seek Clean Water Fund funding for any kind of upgrade or treatment process change, DEEP still needs to review and approve those plans before the project goes to bid. Another thing we're asking for is information on significant industrial users to your system. Most of you should have information on the industrial users discharging to your system, I would hope. But if you don't, DEEP's industrial pre-treatment group does maintain a list of significant industrial users, but it's fairly rudimentary. But we could at least tell you who they are if you need that info. But we're looking for types of industrial processes that they have, any pollutants that may be present in their discharge, the wastewater volume that they're discharging in your system, and whether the WPCF has experienced any process upsets because of any SIUs. So the attachment Y, I get a lot of questions on attachment Y. I understand the instructions for it are very confusing. Basically, for the analyses required for attachment Y, we require just one analysis for all of the base neutral compounds and pesticides listed on pages 5 through 7 of that attachment Y. And then for all other pollutants in tables 2 and 3, which is pages 8 through 17 of attachment Y, it's a very long attachment, analysis is only required if the pollutant is known or suspected to be present in the discharge. So this connects back to the SIU information you're providing. If there's reason to believe that any pollutant would be in the effluent based on the industry's discharge of your collection system, then test for that pollutant. One common error that we've been encountering lately is with permit signatures, or permit application signatures. According to our signatory requirement regulations, all permit applications and permit modification requests submitted to the commissioner should be signed for a municipality by the ranking elected official, or if the facility is a publicly owned treatment work, the chairperson of the WPCA. So those are really the only two people who should be signing the permit application before you submit it to us. That includes the signature at the end of the permit application, as well as on the certification of notice form, which is submitted with the public notice of application that you post in the newspaper. Those must be signed by either the chief elected official or the WPCA chair. Some newer permit requirements that are going out in permits we're issuing right now. Previously, some facilities would only have to meet a small handful of these minimum levels listed on the right. It's based on how sensitive the receiving stream is and how high your in-stream waste concentration is. But now we're requiring all permittees to, attain all of those minimum levels during aquatic toxicity testing. We have lowered the minimum level for mercury from 0.2 micrograms per liter to 0.05, so you'll have to use a new test for that, either EPA method 245.7 or method 1631E. The reason for that was the old method, which was only sensitive to 0.2 micrograms per liter, was not sufficiently sensitive to ensure compliance with water quality standards. CBOD testing is another new requirement in permits that's been being added to permits since the beginning of 2021. There's maybe 20 permits that have that requirement in it so far. This requirement is in addition to regular BOD testing. It's only once or twice a month, depending on the facility, and this data will be used by DEEP's water quality unit to model water quality conditions in receiving streams. But note that the CBOD test cannot be performed by your in-house laboratory. You need to send the samples to a certified contract lab for that analysis. We have some new e-reporting requirements. So starting at the beginning of the pandemic, we had you start reporting your MORs and ATMRs, et cetera, by email. We have finally put that language into the permit in section 7, so it's explicitly stated in the permit now where they should be sent. And also we had a new sewage right to know reporting system go live in December 2021, along with our public-facing CSO and SSO dashboard. So language from those statutory requirements has been added to section 8 of the permit. Another big change in our permits, there's a new section at the end, section 9, which has to do with sewerage system O&M requirements. One thing we're looking for is for you to submit an updated sewer service area map. We're not just looking for the network of pipes, but also the actual plots and area of land served by those sewers, as well as those considered for sewers, and those where sewers will not be provided. We're also asking for an annual O&M report where you provide some basic information like linear feet of pipe repaired and replaced, manholes repaired and replaced, a description of major repairs completed at pump stations in the treatment plant, and of course, proposed collection system and plant improvements for the following calendar year. One more minor change we made in the permits is for the nitrogen sampling frequency. Previously, there was a discrepancy of what the sampling frequency said in the permit versus what it said in the general permit. The general permit was requiring more frequent testing than the individual Npdes permits. So we've we fixed that, and once your permit is reissued, it should have the correct sampling frequency. But note that for influent and primary effluent sampling, it's still only once per month sampling requirement. Quickly going over phosphorus, we have 43 facilities that have an average seasonal load cap for phosphorus that they must meet between the April 1st and October 31st phosphorus removal seasons. It's basically every facility that is not along the shoreline or any of our tidal rivers, the Connecticut River, the Thames River, and the lower Housatonic. So everyone else discharging to one of the inland waterways has a phosphorus seasonal load limit that they must meet. The phosphorus limits started going in effect starting in 2011 and 2012, and as of 2022, all of the limits have gone into effect except for Ridgefield, who is still working on their treatment facility upgrade. We're expecting it to be done this coming phosphorus treatment season, this coming April. And going over compliance from this year, 32 out of 42 facilities tentatively seem to have complied with their average seasonal load caps in 2023. I won't name and shame those who didn't comply. We're still double checking the numbers, but I will say that out of the 2 facilities that did not comply in 2022, Vernon and Naugatuck, they did comply in 2023, so no repeat offenders this year. Lastly, a few plans we have for 2024. Obviously, we want to chip away at the Npdes permit backlog as much as possible and get some permits issued. We will be working to update the permit application and instructions document again to streamline the application and remove duplicate information requests. I know there's some things in the application that we ask for like 2-3 times. Very annoying. I'd like to improve the clarity of the instructions, especially for attachment Y. And we're also working on setting up electronic submission of permit applications. Another thing we have in the works, our group at Deep hired a seasonal employee back in October, and he's working on an MOR project for us. So he's trying to make it so that the MORs that we receive are filed automatically, and so that we can aggregate the data from all the MORs rather than looking at them all separately as like PDF versions, which is very time consuming anytime we need to do data analysis. And our PFAS general permit is also something we'll be working on. Obviously, you all remember the EPA memo that's requiring quarterly sampling of PFAS, the 25 or 40 different PFAS in influent, effluent, and sludge. We have not started implementing those requirements yet. We plan to do it through the general permit, and hopefully we'll have an update for you on that later next year. But that's all I got. There's my email if you have any questions for me. And with that, I will hand it back to Ted. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Nice job. Next up is, I believe, it's Eliana Rafa, speaking of nitrogen. So Eliana, we've worked with her for many years. She's a biologist from Mexico City. She has a master from the School of Forestry Environmental Studies, and she's been 24 years at the Deep, and she oversees the nitrogen trading program as well as the fat, oil, and grease program. So please give a warm welcome to Ms. Rafa. Come on.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to start my presentation by saying thank you to all of you. I really appreciate the work that you have done, and thank you for being part of our team. We worked together very hard, and one thing that I wanted to say is I really appreciate the work that you did during COVID. You will hear a lot, the heroes, and one of the heroes also that you were. Every time that I flush my toilet, I will think about you, and I pray for you that you will be healthy. And I really appreciate all the work that you have done. I would like to also congratulate you for the work that you have done on the nitrogen program. We have been working together. We, as a team, I'm saying the DEP has been working a lot also to implement this program, and you guys have been working on understanding the process and how we have been implementing and making it better. So as you see right now, I have this graph from 2021, 2022, and 2023. And as you see, we have been stable. We have been working together on being in compliance with the permit. As you see in 2022, sometimes the weather at the beginning of the season can affect the process, but we are working better and better on understanding of the season. Despite the weather, the strong storms that we have received every summer, this year, as you see into 2023, you guys were able to handle it well. So congratulations, you are in compliance with the permit. The price of the credit is going to be very similar as this year as last year. So I'm not sure what is happening. Usually in December we see some higher levels, but again the weather has been helping a lot. So perhaps the storms, we are expecting very much the same levels as last year. What is happening with our permit? As you know, the general permit for nitrogen has been renewed. And right now, the two major changes that we have for the permit is, as Chris mentioned it, nitrogen and nitrite. We are requesting now to test individually instead of separately. And the reason of that, when we started the program, we just wanted to understand what was going on with TKN and then nitrogen and nitrite together to understand what was the process as general. And right now we're looking at what it's converting from nitrate and nitrite in a separately, and it's the easiest way to more monitoring that. It took us a long time because we wanted to understand what is happening as a process, but now we wanted to be more specific of understanding in nitrate and nitrite. The other major changes is, as you know, we have been working a long time ago, since 2018, by the way, you guys, no, 2000, what is it now? 1998. I'm sorry, you start testing for nitrogen, and you were sending the information by paper. And then we came back with a template where you will send in the information, the NAR, we call it the NAR, the Nutrient Analysis Report, and you were sending it by paper. We will enter the data by hand. We will be entering around sometimes from 5,000 samples, entry data for around 8,000. So sometimes we made mistakes. We have interns coming in. Sometimes we enter the data by hand, and we will make a little bit of mistakes, confession. And as you know, one decimal place can it can be a big difference on how much you pay or not. So the next thing that we did, we changed to an electronic system. You will be sending a template. You will send it in the electronically, and the computer will take the information. So we didn't have to enter the data anymore by hand. So with that, we keep updating on how we're going to do that. And now IT in our department has been putting a new system together where you will be entering the data. When you receive it, you will enter it just the data into the database. I will show you right now how it's going to be working. So as I mentioned to you, this was the NAR, the current NAR as we reported. We're not going to be using any more of that. Please don't send, I know for right now, a lot of people is still sending the paperwork as a backup. We don't need it anymore. So don't send the NARs by paper. We just send it electronically. So as you are doing it right now, the ones you guys are reporting the nitrogen data, you are requesting permission to share the template on the shared drive. So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to send an email to Sanbae from IT, who will let you get into our shared drive, and that's the way that you are going to be entering the information on each cell, all the data, the nitrogen data. So the first step, again, we will be having training for this, but you will be requesting a permission to get into the shared drive, the DEP shared drive. As right now, you get an email from saying now you're allowed to get into the system. You get into a link to validate your email, and then you get a validation authentication system where you get in a text or an email. And then this is a new part. Before you, right now, as current right now, you are uploading the template, the NAR template, into the shared drive. You won't have to do that. Now, you will use this template, and in the left side, as you see, it says new, and then you will be able to kind of like, you're familiar with Amazon or any other app, you will be able to enter your information, the flow, the date, and then each parameter, it will be entered into the system. And so that's very simple. We will have probably perhaps 2 trainings, and we will be sending you the instructions by email. The other part of this is before, when you were sending the NAR, you will sign the information. The template will have a signature. Because now we are using the system that you are going to be reporting electronically your data without a signature. Now we have to have a subscriber agreement. The subscriber agreement will allow the subscriber, or who is going to be reporting the data, and that is considering as part of your a requirement for this is validating that I am the person who is sending the information and is as valid as a signature of your report. So the subscriber agreement, as you have done it for the DMR and the shared right to know, is exactly the same as you have done it before. So we are requesting that the template is coming soon. You will see it probably in the next week. We will be sending you again the instructions of how it's going to be implementing this system. And also you will be receiving a copy of the subscriber agreement, and we will need that back soon. This new system is going to be implementing probably the first reporting on January. You will use the old system, unfortunately, because we didn't plan correctly, unfortunately, and it probably is going to take a little time for you to receive all the subscriber agreements back from you guys. So we are thinking that is going to be by February 15, you will be entering the data for January. Remember, every time that you report data for us is by the 15th of each month. So you will be reporting the first time on February 15. You will be reporting the data for January. The data for January you will be receiving on February 15. So hopefully by that time, you guys will be able to report that. And I also wanted to take this opportunity to remind you that we are looking for the operational maintenance survey And the deadline to submit the operation and maintenance surveys for the 64 plants that they are removing nitrogen, that they have done a lot of work on nitrogen. We are looking for December 15. Thank you so much, and if you have any questions, I will be able to answer it later. Thank you.
All right, so next up is Susan Unger, is an inspector with the WPLR Municipal Facilities Unit conducting Npdes permit compliance inspections of wastewater pollution control facilities. Susan received her bachelor's in science and biology from SUNY New Paltz. She began her career in the water and wastewater field at the Dutchess County Environmental Health Department Laboratory, running fecal coliforms by most probable number and scrubbing her fair share of BOD bottles. We all know how that goes. Susan went to the Clinton County Health Department, where she inspected facilities covered by the NYS sanitary code, including individual sewer disposal systems and public water supplies. Returning to the mid-Hudson Valley region, she served as a lab manager at the Poughkeepsie wastewater control facility and moved on to a private NELAC certified environmental testing laboratory, where she was involved in all aspects of drinking water and wastewater sampling, analysis, and reporting. So please welcome Ms. Susan Unger to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, folks, for having us here again to speak to you about all our fun things. And I will try to make this as quick and painless as possible. So first, I'm here to talk to you about Cmom. Cmom, Capacity, Maintenance, Operation, and Management, backwards. Cmom program, what is Cmom? Cmom programs incorporate many of the standard operation and maintenance activities that you routinely implement with a set of information management requirements so that you can better manage your system, better investigate capacity issues, proactively prevent SSOs, and respond better to SSO events. Cmom planning covers operation and maintenance planning, capacity assessment planning, capital improvement planning, financial management planning. Lots to Cmom. How was it developed? Back a few years ago, Region 4 had a POTW MOM programs project. They invited specific permittees from specific watersheds. They had them evaluate their collection systems and send in a report. And so EPA headquarters combined the elements of the region's program with existing Npdes inspection guidance and developed this guide for evaluating Cmom at sanitary sewer collection systems. So the goals of Cmom: to use resources efficiently, to deliver excellent service, to protect your employees, and of course, to comply with the Clean Water Act. Efficient use of resources. Cmom can help utilities optimize use of human and material resources by shifting maintenance activities from reactive to proactive, which often leads to savings through avoiding costs due to overtime, reducing emergency construction costs, lowering your insurance premiums, and changes in financial performance goals and fewer lawsuits. Another Cmom goal, excellent customer service. The Cmom approach helps the owner or operator provide a high level of service to customers and to reduce regulatory noncompliance. Cmom programs help improve communication relations with the public, with other municipal works, with regional planning organizations, and your friendly local regulators. Cmom goal, protect your employees. I will never not trot out this slide. 2 sewage workers found dead at the bottom of a Pennsylvania manhole. They were both in their 20s. They were conducting tests. Their coworkers were down the road, lost contact with them, didn't think to check on them until noon, and yes, they were dead. One of the most common reasons for injury and fatalities in wastewater collection systems is the failure of victims to recognize hazards. And of course, the Cmom goal, reduce and mitigate SSOs. Clean Water Act tells the permittee that they shall at all times properly operate and maintain all facilities and related appurtenances. Our permit section 1B specifically references the regulations of Connecticut state agencies, sections 22A 433. Paragraph F references proper O&M. Paragraph H references the duty to mitigate. And proper O&M includes, but is not limited to, effective performance, adequate funding, adequate operators, staffing, and training. Duty to mitigate means taking all reasonable steps to minimize or prevent any discharge in violation of the permit or any discharge which has a reasonable likelihood of adversely affecting human health or the environment. So, Cmom plan components. The C stands for capacity. Capacity evaluation begins with an inventory and characterization of the system components. You do that through flow monitoring, you do that through sewer system testing, do that through sewer system inspection, and ultimately through sewer system rehabilitation. The M, first one, is for management. Management has a lot to do with this. Organizational structure, of course, being one of the most important, and including operations and maintenance. There's a reference providing staff guidelines or recommendations, TR 16, I think we all know it well. Management is also responsible for training. Don't kill your people. Management is responsible for internal communications. Communication is essential for ensuring that collection systems run efficiently. It's especially important that an effective communication link exists between wastewater treatment plant operators and the collection system crews. Management also has to deal with customer service. Management also has management information systems, CMMS, GIS, and they are only as accurate as the data used to develop them, which was most likely paper files. Management also has to deal with the SSO notification program, and we all know that. And management, of course, is responsible for the legal authority, which could take the form of sewer use ordinances, contracts, service agreements, and other legally binding documents. The O in Cmom for operations. Budgeting is an important part of operations. Monitoring for hydrogen sulfide is an important part of operations. Safety, here again, as well as management. Safety is kind of important. And then there's the emergency preparedness and response. The EPA is big on everyone developing an emergency preparedness response plan, which should deal with both routine and catastrophic emergencies. Operations also includes modeling for those systems who are large enough to want to bother doing that. Mapping, of course, is very important. Maps should include manholes, sewer cleanouts, and should also indicate the property served and reference its cleanout. Operations includes new construction. Operations, of course, also includes pump stations. And maintenance, finally, the last M in Cmom. The goal of every owner or operator should be to reduce corrective and emergency maintenance through the use of planned and predictive maintenance. So we have budgeting to deal with, we have sewer cleaning to deal with, we have parts and equipment inventory to deal with. I have a whole host of helpful references and URLs. And if you have any Cmom questions, feel free to reach out to me or Anthony Poon, who developed the brochure that I didn't see out front. I thought it was going to be here. Anyway, so that's it for Cmom, and I do believe I'm up next. Yep, with reporting reminders. I dusted off an old favorite and shortened it up a little bit, so here we go. Reporting starts early. School would be a lot better if it didn't have all that paperwork. There's always a due date. DMRs, ATMRs, MORs, always due on the 15th of the month following the month in which samples are collected. The EPA electronic reporting rule has something to do with some of this. It was published originally in October of 2015. It requires entities to report information electronically, such as DMRs, which is why we went to NetDMR, notice of intent to discharge with a general permit, and other specified reports such as annual biosolids reports, which those of you majors have to do. Let me just buzz back to this cute little picture here. If you can all see it, it's kind of fuzzy, but it came from the the EPA in 2014, on the left-hand side, you see a desk full of biosolids reports. And several years later, 2019, they only got 52 reports instead of over 2,000 reports. So e-reporting is helpful. E-reporting was supposed to be all sewn up by now, but COVID sort of got in the way. So in 2020, the Phase 2 extension rule was signed, allowing everyone until the end of 2025 to comply with the rest of the rest of the E-rule. And that doesn't apply very much to WPCFs, but it applies to MS4s, it applies to stormwater, it applies to CAFOs, it applies to some things that you may need to know about. So there's some interesting URLs. If any of you are interested, you can look it up. And then, of course, there's reporting to us. MORs, ATMRs go to the email, bypass reporting, we all know Q alert, and as you just heard from Ileana, that system is now changing for NARs. Just a few reminders of what I see in reporting still. Certification statements should be signed and dated, even if you send in an an Excel spreadsheet for an MOR. You can actually just write your name, write the date. That would be really good if you could do that. So that's one of those things I'd like to see a little more of. Contact information. We know the operator dance happens all the time. So if you're a new chief operator, or if you have a new chief operator, check your forms on the top of your MOR and on the top of your ATMR. Make sure that your contact information is correct. And if you report any effluent limit violations, please comment the MOR. And comment the DMR too. DMR has a nice little comment screen on it. Here's another reminder of things that I often see. DMR daily max flow. The permittee shall report the average daily flow and maximum daily flow for each sampling month on the discharge monitoring report. So the DMR daily max flow, as you can see by the circled bit on the screenshot from the DMR, equals the number from the MOR, the corresponding MOR. Their highest total daily flow for the month was 1.10 MGD, and they reported 1.1 on their DMR. So that's how that works. And nitrogen data should be on the MORs, even though your permit does say to test once. As Chris said, permits are being rewritten, and the nitrogen general permit is being rewritten, and so nutrient data should be posted on your MORs. That's part of the permit. The results of chemical analyses for all samples collected during the month, total daily wastewater flow volume for each sampling day, shall be entered on the monthly operating reports and nitrogen analysis reports. Please include that nitrogen data on the MOR. Attaching a copy of the NAR to the MOR does not meet the reporting requirements. And as you've heard, nitrate and nitrite have to be sampled separately. We would like them to be reported separately on the MOR as well. Some helpful URLs. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm all set. Thanks, folks.
All right, thank you, Susan. Next up is Ann Strout. She is an environmental engineer 3 and started her state career in 2001 with the drinking water section of Connecticut Department of Public Health before coming to the municipal wastewater program at the DEEP in 2008. Ann holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering and Fire Protection Engineering, as well as a Master of Science degree in Occupational Safe and Health Management, all from the University of New Haven. So welcome, Ann. Thank you.
I'm going to talk about the same thing I always talk about, sewage right to know. So there's some changes to the sewage right to know that are upcoming due to the e-reporting rule. So we're going to have our data that you give us flow up to EPA's data system. So we're going to have to make some small changes. So we're working with EPA to make that happen. But the report form is going to have some minor changes, like you have to have your permit number on there, and there's a couple other things that have to happen. So there'll be a small couple changes, but everything else that you're used to reporting all the time will still be there, so please make sure you fill out the forms. Some common mistakes. Forgetting to close the reports. I filed the report. 2 months later, Ann's calling you, can we close this? So go back in and close your reports, please, especially because the end of the year is coming. And we have to do a whole bunch of reporting up to the legislature. So please go in and make sure that your reports are closed. Not entering a volume or flow rate, especially in the final volume box. Please make sure that you go in and enter a volume or flow rate so that we can make our magic numbers work for the legislature. Entering the wrong city in the map, that just happened this morning. When you go down to the very bottom and you go to drop the pin, make sure you're dropping it in the right city. That's how it determines, who owns the report, which group owns the report. So if you don't change it from, I don't know why it defaults to Hartford, but if you don't change it from Hartford to your town or city, Hartford owns it. They send me all these nasty emails, and I go back in and I change it and reassign it back to you guys. So make sure that you hit the right city at the bottom of the map. Not going back in from a 2-day report and changing it to a 5-day report before you close it. Make sure that you always close it out as a 5-day report. And if it was a really small incident and you going in, you don't have to do a 2-day report before you do a 5-day report. Just do the 5-day report and close it. If you have a report that's no longer needed, you can actually, when you go into the activity close section, you can choose to rescind it. You can tell me it's a duplicate, and somebody from the team will go in later and delete it. So, feel free to use the rescind or duplicate if you don't need to make a report and you started one. Not saving before you close. I don't think people do it as much, but I know when we first did it, every time you change something in that report, and you can go in and change it multiple times, you can reopen it, you can reclose it, make sure you hit that save button so everything that you changed, all the data, is saved. That's like a big thing. So make sure that you hit the save button. Subscriber agreements. Everybody seems to forget that when you want to add somebody new, you have to fill out a new subscriber agreement. They're on our website. If you change facilities, you go from one city to another city, you have to let us know because we have to take you off the current system that you're in, and you have to have a subscriber agreement from the new facility that you're at in order to report. So once submitted, you have to take the training. I'm going to assume you guys are all good, and you got your link to the training. You went in and took your training, and you got your username and password to get in the system. But we currently have 108 reporters that have a subscriber agreement that haven't bothered to go in and take the training. So make sure that you go in and take the training when you get the link. And if you know you submitted a subscriber agreement and you didn't take the training, just shoot us an email and we'll resend that training link to you. And that also puts 8 municipalities in a little bit of a bind because they don't have an authorized reporter right now. So if they have a bypass and you don't have an authorized reporter, you're going to wind up with an NOV for not being able to electronically report as required by the regulations. And the subscriber agreements are available on our website. It's the end of the year, like I said, so please go in and make sure that you've closed your reports. You can check by logging into your account and looking in your open report area. You can check by going onto the dashboard to see if something's open. I know that we have 4 reports that are hanging for some reason from 2021. But other than those, everything else you guys should go in and close. And there are open SSOs from January of this year. So make sure that, I'll be calling you, sending you emails, bugging you. Please go in and close those. There's other types that are open too, but the CSOs and SSOs are the ones we report up to the legislator right away. So those are the ones that we focus on right now. So, and again, if the report didn't occur after you started a report, please feel free to use the close rescind or close duplicate. So kudos to the CSO community who've been diligent in closing the reports. Yay, guys, CSO guys. Mostly because they're the ones that the environmental groups are monitoring right now, but you know, if the rest of you guys could get into it, that'd be great too. Sewage right to know possibilities. We recently had the city of New Haven reach out to us and ask us if we could give them a feed for their website. For originally they wanted open CSOs and SSOs, but they finally decided on just any CSO in the last 14 days on their website. So they actually have a feed from everything that they put in to the sewage right to know system on their website, and that's kind of what it looks like, but it scrolls over to the right, it's pretty big. So we can develop these feeds for other people's websites if people are interested. The only downside appears to be that it doesn't seem to work on a phone, so like if you wanted to look on it at a phone, it doesn't seem to work, but it works on the websites. And this is our contact information, but I did want to bring up one more point. If you have a report and you're reporting to the Sewage Right to Know system, you do not need to contact the Deep Spills Unit for any reason. You know, unless it's a major thing and oh my God, you need the world there. You do not need to contact the Deep Spill system. We got a whole bunch of spills reports last night that were reported into the system, and that does not need to happen. So, you know, don't contact Deep Spills unless like you need the armed guard there or something. And that's my spiel. And I know we're up with Craig next, so thank you.
All right, Craig is here. He's an environmental analyst with DEEP and has been working with DEEP Municipal Group since 2002. Craig inspects wastewater treatment facilities and is Connecticut's wastewater operator certificate coordinator. So please welcome Craig to the podium.
Morning, everybody. Happy holidays. Just one slide from me and a couple comments after that. So I was asked to give the year-long certification sort of summary where everything stands. We don't have that. I only have the first 3 quarters, so that's what you're looking at here today. So pretty typical year with certification, if you're looking at 3 quarters of it. 134 exams have been given. When it comes to class 1, 2, 3 breakdown, we have 16 new class 1 operators in the state, 2 new class 2s, 4 class 3s, and 7 class 4s. That's a really good number. The 2s are always strange to me because when you look at the 1, 2, 3, and 4, the amount of exams should be pretty much the same. The 4 is a little different because we all know about the DRC requirements and everything, but the 2s, we never have a lot of people taking it, and as we look at the pass rates are down a little from that one compared to the 1. So when it comes to pass rates, the class 1, we have 56% pass rate. Pretty typical, that's what we like to see for the class 1. It's a big dip in the class 2. We'd also like to see that for 56, but we only have a 31% pass rate on that. Going over to the class 3, 27% pass rate this year, pretty standard for the class 3. And for the 4, you guys did really well. 43% pass rate is really good for the class 4. That's also typically around that 25 to 26%. So good job there. And again, one thing I always want to remind people is many years ago on the advisory committee, looking at these numbers, somebody said, you know, we're always looking at these numbers for the year or the exam cycle or whatever it may be. Well, what about the ultimate pass rate? Where does that stand? Because that's really the best way to determine what we have for pass rates. And pretty much across the board, 1 through 4, ultimate pass rate is around 85%. So that means that if you start taking an exam, ultimately, depending on how many times it will take you, it could be once or it could be 10, 85% of the people pass. So while the numbers look low here, and ultimately if people stick with it, they're going to end up passing these exams. As far as the overall operators in the state right now, we have about 273 class 1s, 220 class 2s, 203 class 3s, and 156 class 4s. So again, a solid number of operators. And I know when we look at particularly the 4, everybody's worried about, you know, people retiring. I think over the last 3 years I counted, we have 20 new class 4 operators, and we haven't had that many Class 4 retires. So we're staying very solid with our numbers in Connecticut. Couple points I wanted to make regarding the application. Some of you who have been around a while, majority of the time we've been having certification exams, we've had 2 a year. Now certification exams are year-round, and we accept applications year-round. We always put out an exam notice in October because I won't bore you with the details, but we have to, basically, based on our regs. And that particular notice goes from October through September. And a lot of people in September, I start getting calls. People are paranoid because they didn't get their application in, and they think we're done accepting applications. And that's not how it works. As soon as October comes around, we're going to issue a new one. So we're always accepting applications now. So there's really no exam period the way there used to be. Anybody who applies after that October notice goes out is applying for the following calendar year. So if you were to apply October 1st, you can't begin sitting until January 1st, theoretically. But anybody after that is applying for 2024. When it comes to scheduling exams, the way it works now, again, you are applying for the calendar year, and if you have to retake an exam because you fail, you don't have to reapply to DEEP within that calendar year. You can just contact the testing agency, and there's instructions on your score sheet how to do that, and reschedule it on your own. PSI, the testing agency, knows that, and they have that information, but it doesn't always trickle down to the people scheduling. So you may contact and say, hey, I need to reschedule a retake exam. After you wait your 90 days, you can sit after the 90 days, and they won't let you. And you can tell them, no, I don't need to contact DEEP, and they'll tell you you can't. Don't argue, just say okay, and then contact me, and I'll get it straightened out. I've had people spend days trying to argue, saying, yes, I can, and they're not. I can't get it to I don't know why. It's just not working. Some operators know, or some schedulers know, others don't. But again, if you have an issue with that, just contact me, and I'll get it straightened out for you really quickly. And then the last 2 things that are not on this form is that we, as the Certification Advisory Committee, had a couple people end their terms this year. So we're looking for 2 more next year. I'm going to send something out to Jeff or Ted to put it on CTWIA's website. We'll send out a mailer about it. Typically, if you're interested in the advisory committee, we have meetings scheduled once a month. But the advisory committee is not as active as it once was. We're not writing new regs anymore. Back in the day when we had our monthly meetings, we'd have stacks of paper that we'd come to every meeting with, and in person go over what we needed to go over. And now, typically with the advisory committee, I'm sending things out electronically throughout the month. So if we meet 2 to 3 times a year, that's pretty typical. But it is a very important group that I rely on and I appreciate very much. So if anybody has any interest in that, you'll see a notice going out about that in the next, probably in the beginning of the new year. And then the last thing is plant security. We recently had a plant who was secured at night, and someone who wasn't of sound mind broke in and started operating the plant because they thought they were an operator. And it made for quite a mess and quite a surprise for the operators when they came in the morning. And in the last couple months, Lex and I both have been to facilities where we walked in, gate was open, we went into the 2 separate plants. Each went into the administrative building, no one there. Looked around, walked the plant, and no one was there. So just a reminder to secure your plants. I know back after 9/11, there were a lot of security training and vulnerability assessments, and everybody was really locked down. And I know over time, kind of forget about those things. But please secure your buildings individually, the buildings themselves, even if you are there, and certainly if you leave your facility and maybe you're a small plant with only 1 or 2 operators, lock up that plant before you go and make sure to prevent any catastrophe that could happen because of that. So that is all I have. If you have any questions, I guess, I don't know if we're all coming up for questions after this, or
Does anyone have a question?
any questions for certification?